I've got one flame to burn, one race that I can say I ran.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 21047.com podcast. My name is Keith Cartwright. I am the host of this show, and I am really glad to have you along listening in today, wherever it is that you are listening and whenever it is that you might be listening in. Today's episode is sponsored by my good friend Rachel Wood. Rachel has sponsored this show and encouraged everything I've been doing in this effort for a very long time, all the way back to the beginning, really. So I thank you, Rachel. If you would like to learn how you can support this effort financially, you can go to my website, 21047.com, TWOTIM47.com. Click on the Support Me tab and then scroll on down and you will find a link to my Patreon page. Patreon is just the platform I use where folks can offer a monthly financial support and just help me to continue to grow this effort, share these podcasts, share running and life stories that I hope are inspirational and uplifting to folks who might be needing some of that. So Rachel, thank you again, and thank you all of my Patreon supporters and all of you who listen. Together, it really becomes just this support system and this team that helps make all of this what it is. And what it is today hosting an interview with my new friend, Sasha Wolff. I just happened to run across an organization that Sasha founded online, a Facebook page, Still I Run. And so as I was looking into Still I Run, I discovered that this is a Facebook page and it's a lot of stuff they got going on that Sasha will talk about in the interview. But really it is a support system for runners mostly runners who are running to help with their mental health challenges and to help them either support the challenges they have, maybe recover through some of the challenges they have. Sasha just has had her own struggles that she'll talk about in here, and she turned to running to help deal with her own depression and anxiety. And then one day she decided that, there really ought to be something online here that recognizes and helps nurture this connection between running and physical activity and mental health, and she didn't find it. So she just decided, hey, I'm going to start it myself. So we talk all about it. We get into it, where this name Still I Run came from. It's fascinating. Sasha is a pillar of strength for an awful lot of people. So I hope you will get a lot out of this interview. I sure did. I, for myself, have really discovered this value in running that helps me deal with a lot of stress, probably helps me deal with a lot of my own issues that I have tackled in the past. And so this episode really resonated with me, and I hope you will check out, after you listen to Sasha, that you will check out Still I Run. She's got a lot of big plans for this group and this organization, and I, for one, think she's probably, after you listen to her, the exact right person to take this on. So let me turn this over to my interview with Sasha Wolff. Well, I want to welcome Sasha Wolff to the 21047.com podcast. So welcome, Sasha.
Hey, sounds good to be here.
Yeah, so I came across Sasha online, like I run across so many interesting people. And she has a running / mental health promotion and recovery. And we'll talk a little bit more about all that in a minute. But my life, well, at least lately, is a lot about running. And my professional life is all about mental health, wellness, and promotion. So I got really interested in this and just started reading a little bit more into your group. So I'm fascinated to have this discussion. I open up a lot of these interviews with this first question, and that is, because I know you are a runner, how did you get your start running?
So my parents are actually runners, and it's kind of always been there, but I never really took it seriously. I would, run for fun in high school and college. But I didn't really get into it until I was actually checked into a mental health hospital for a week. And when I got out of the hospital, one thing that really helped for me to establish a routine was just starting walking. So like walking 15 minutes at a time, 16 minutes at a time. And then from there, I started running a mile, 2 miles, and I literally have not stopped running for my mental health since then.
Now, I'm curious with that. So when you had the mental health challenge and you were in the hospital for a week and then you got out, was the exercise, was that something that somebody suggested? Was that just something you started doing and then discovered this mental benefit to it, or how did that come to be?
It was a little bit of everything. So when I was in the hospital, they talked about developing healthy habits and routines. And they had mentioned that like finding a hobby or exercise was good for your mental health. And then when I got out of the hospital and I was at home by myself, without that support group around me, I remember just laying on my bed and seeing like my running shoes in the corner of my room. So I don't know, somehow in the hazy state of depression yet, I thought, well, I guess I should get outside and do something. So I put on those shoes, and after I went for that first walk, I got back and I felt a little bit better, and I was like, all right, there's probably something to this exercise for mental health thing. And then I just got hooked. Every mile I went, every minute I went a little further, I started feeling better, like getting that runner's high after a good run. And there's also the challenge of it too. Like, yeah, even though I feel like laying in bed all day, even though I have this disease, still I run. Like, still I'm able to get out of bed and strap on these shoes and do something that not a lot of people find enjoyment in or even want to do. And I find such power and strength in that.
So when you were hospitalized, your mental health challenges, your depression, does that date back to your youth, Sasha, or is that something that you developed later in life? What's the history of that, your depression and mental health challenges?
Yeah, so I mean, looking back on it, I would say it probably started when I was 15, 16 years old, and my parents had actually said, like, hey, we think you have depression, you should go and get help. And they set up appointments for me. And, being a teenager, you're like, yeah, right, mom and dad, you don't know what you're talking about. And, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So I went to a couple of therapy sessions and nothing stuck, because you have to put in a little bit of work. And so then in college, when I was 18 years old, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was 2,000 miles away out of the state from where I had grown up in California. And that's when I started taking medication for it. And that medication worked fine until it just didn't anymore. And so I want to say like 7-8 years after starting medication was when everything came to a head. The medication wasn't working anymore. And that's when I ended up having to check myself into a mental health hospital. So I'd say it's, been a lifelong journey so far of having depression and anxiety.
I have a part-time role I think I told you about when we were messaging back and forth with the local college here, and I'm the alcohol and drug education coordinator. I do a lot of substance abuse prevention work, but my office is actually in the counseling center. And
oh, cool.
So I've been there about 4 years, and every year, it's a small college, we have about 1,400 students, I guess, but Every year you just see more and more students coming to seek out counseling services, more and more students struggling. I'm curious if you had any thoughts or insights on what is behind that.
I mean, if I had to think about it for me personally, I would say it's just the newness of being on your own. You're 18 years old, you're out of your parents' house, regardless if, you live there part-time and you're going to class. Like, this is a whole new chapter in your life. What you're doing and learning in school theoretically lays out kind of the roadmap of what you're going to do afterwards in terms of, how you're going to live. So I think that's just a lot of pressure. And, I've been out of college for a while. I can't even imagine what it is like being a college student now with all the distractions we have going on with social media and trying to keep up with the Joneses, if you will. So I think it's just that stage in life where it exasperates everything.
I think that's a lot. I think that's a lot of it. Part of it, though, I think is good, too, because I think some of the stigma, hopefully, is going away, which is making students more free to come ask for and seek help. So hopefully some of that's moving in the right direction. I want to go back to your running. So you saw those shoes, you put them on, you started walking a little bit, then running a little bit, and then you just kept doing it. And it sounds to me like at some point you just kept running a little further. At some point you entered a race, right?
Yeah, I signed up for, well, I didn't sign up for it. I made the non-committal commitment to join a running group and train for, it's called the Amway Riverbank Run here in Grand Rapids. And they've got a 5K, a 10K, and a 25K. And I told the group of people I trained with, I was like, I guess I'll do the 10K. I've never done a 10K before. And I ended up training with them and hitting that 10K distance in training. And I was like, all right, well, I guess go big or go home. And I signed up for the 25K, which is 15.5 miles. So the only other race I had run prior to that was a 5K. So going from a 5K to a 25K was difficult, but also so empowering knowing that I could do that with depression and everything.
And it sounds like it didn't stop there then, did it? The 15-mile run? No.
So, gosh, I can't even count how many races I've done. I think I've done 3 or 4 marathons, and probably like 24 half marathons. And I even did what's called the Dopey Challenge in Disney World, which I highly recommend. It's a 5K on Thursday, a 10K on Friday, a half marathon on Saturday, and then a full marathon on Sunday. So it's back to back to back to back days of running.
So I have a friend, and what I call that is a race buffet, and I tell her that the only time I do buffets is if it's food. I go to a race weekend. One race gets me my money's worth. I feel no need to experience every race they offer. So sounds like you've got a little of that race buffet in you that she has. So she's always trying to talk me into these race buffets, and I'm like, no. And usually it's I imagine I run more half marathons than anything, although lately it's started getting longer and longer. I ventured into the ultra world this year, so it's
nice.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I you can keep the race buffets.
I have not heard it called that, but I'm going to use that from now on.
Yes, and for all of your friends who don't want to do it, you tell them they can come join me at the food buffet. That's where buffets work well. So, Still I Run, you have founded this group, Still I Run, and you alluded to it here a minute ago, that kind of comes from this idea that even as you battle depression, still you run. Where Where did the idea for this group come from?
It started a couple of years ago, probably in 2014, maybe a little earlier than that. But I was like, there's no group out there for people that run for mental health. I mean, there's races you can find where you can run on behalf of a mental health organization, like NAMI or something, but there was no group out there for runners who wanted to just run on behalf of it. And I figured, all right, if it's not out there yet, why don't I create it? And the thing that held me up the longest was coming up with a name for it. I was toying around with the idea of Runners for Depression. I was like, nope, that's not a very inspiring name. And then I was like, Depressed Runners. Nope, also an awful name. And then I think in 2016, I was training for my very first marathon, and after my very first 20-mile training run, I got a tattoo on my wrist, and it says, "Still I Run." This was just something that I had come up with on my own. It's a spin on the Maya Angelou poem, "Still I Rise." Like, even though you have hardships in life, still I rise. And I was like, well, I'm just going to put a run in there and put the semicolon as the I in there to represent the semicolon project, and call it a day. And then after I had it tattooed on myself, I was like, oh my goodness, that should be the name of the group. And it's kind of just stuck, and it resonates with a lot of people. People always ask about it when they see the tattoo, and it's always a great opportunity to share my story and also share what the group is about. So yeah, I started the group because I didn't see anybody else had, and to my knowledge, Still I Run is still the only group / nonprofit / organization out there that is for the explicit purpose of running on behalf of mental health or running for mental health.
And so and I think I saw where you have a couple of thousand people, at least on the Facebook page, which is usually one of the indicators of the level of activity. Did you expect that many people would want to get involved?
No. When I started the group on Facebook, I imagined my mom and dad liking the page and like a couple family members. But it just kind of went gangbusters after that. It really started to resonate with people. But I think the one thing that kind of helped it to grow the way it did is I wasn't afraid to share my story. I deal with depression on a daily basis, and I talk about it openly. And I think that's just refreshing for a lot of people, and it kind of gets other people feeling like they're in a safe space and they can share their stories and talk and run with other people that run for mental health. But no, I had no idea it was going to be as big as it is, and I truly hope for it to be a full-time job for me within the next 5 or so years.
Yeah, well, I think you're on your way for that. I'd seen you posted on Facebook last night reaching out for some assistance as this thing continues to grow and grow. I can imagine, because I think you have a 1-year-old daughter. Am I right about that?
Yep, a 1-year-old daughter who is absolutely amazing. And then I also work full-time as an internal communication specialist. So pretty busy between those two things and my husband and like continuing to run for my own mental health.
Yeah, how do you balance it all? I mean, because I know there are a lot of people who are listening, and that's always one of the popular sort of questions folks want me to ask, because I think that's the challenge that a lot of people run into is how do I balance all this? How do you do it?
I think it helps to have an understanding spouse, at least in my situation, because he truly believes in Still I Run and what I'm doing. And when I have to carve out a little bit of time to do stuff for Still I Run, he is all for it. I also take advantage of my lunch breaks at work, and I do Still I Run work at lunchtime just to fit in an extra hour. And then on top of that, my husband also loves to run, and we run together. We put our daughter in her stroller, and all of us will run together. And that's just a great way for us to spend quality time together and also run at the same time. And then I think you eventually come to the point that I have come to now, and that sometimes you need to start asking for a little bit of help. You can't do everything on your own, otherwise you risk burning out. And that's what I had alluded to in the Facebook post. Like, I can't afford to burn out on this, because it is this work that Still I Run is doing is too important for that. I believe in this with everything that I have, that this can be a nationwide movement. I know that sounds, crazy, but I do believe in this because there are no other groups around that does what we do.
Yeah, no, I absolutely believe it. I think there's so many angles to go with that. First and foremost, I shared something this week that, the life expectancy in this country has dropped for 3 straight years. We're one of the most developed countries in the world, advanced hospitals, advanced scientists, yet we're the country whose life expectancy is dropping, and most of that is attributed to successful suicides and the opiate epidemic, which to me broadly implies to me that there are a lot of people out there who are hurting, who are suffering. Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the growth of your group really being spurred by your willingness to share your story. And my work in this field, I've found that really if there's a lot of answers that have to come about for folks to be mentally well. But the one common denominator I always hear is that people just need someone to talk to. They just need to know that somebody will listen. And I think maybe you've given a lot of people an avenue to do that. I'm curious, in this role that you have there been any stories or any themes that have, one, maybe caught you off guard, that you didn't see this coming, or maybe that you find especially rewarding, that just makes you want to keep doing this beyond maybe the passion you had for it in the beginning?
Yeah, we actually have on Facebook, there's the normal Facebook page, which is open to the public, and the content is curated by me. But there's also a private Facebook group, and it's not private because we're trying to hide. It's private because when people post in it, that post doesn't spread to friends and family's newsfeed. So, like, if you're still unsure about being open with your story of mental health to family and friends, whatever you post in this group stays in that group. So I started that group about 7-8 months ago, and there's close to, I think, 700 or 800 people in there. And people are posting in there on a daily basis about their struggles with getting up in the morning, or saying that they're just posting there for accountability purposes. They're going for a run. They'll check back in with the group in a little bit. And there's just hundreds of people in there talking back and forth about their journeys of running with mental health, and then eventually people started posting things like, I'm so thankful I found this group. I don't know where I would be without this. I'm so thankful I met so-and-so through this group. And when I read some of these posts from people, I almost have tears in my eyes, because, like, that's the purpose, that people are connecting with each other on this, like, raw, vulnerable level in this private Facebook group, and it's because of Still I Run. And I think that's been the most surprising thing to me, is this community that's been built. I really hope to grow that more, because it's not just about spreading mental health awareness through running. It's about creating a community of people that can share with each other. and feel like they see the Still I Run logo, or they see another person in Still I Run gear, and you go, all right, we're on the same life journey. We know what's going on, kind of deal. So I would say that that's been a huge highlight, seeing everybody's stories in that private Facebook group.
Yeah, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say that that group is saving people's lives. I mean, there are just so many people who find the healing that they need through just sharing their story, having somebody who will listen. So I can imagine that's a very powerful group that you have there. Do you have to manage, I won't even say have to, but I don't know the better word, because when you have that many people having conversations, I can imagine that can get tough to kind of manage all that and make sure that it flows in the right way? Or have you found that it just kind of takes care of itself?
Everybody there is so respectful. I have never once run into anything where I've been like, oh, that wasn't good. Because everyone there is so great, and I mean, knock on wood, I hope that never changes. But there's so many people that are such big advocates and fans of Still I Run. Like there's a couple of Still I Run ambassadors in that group that comment and look at everything in there for me. So there's other people actually watching this group on my behalf too, and if they were to ever see anything a little sketchy or like, I have no doubt in my mind that they would reach out to me immediately saying like, hey, I think you need to talk to so-and-so or something like that. Like a good example of people being respectful of that group is I had someone in that group message me, and she's like, she works for one of those multi-level marketing companies, and she was taking a supplement that had kind of helped her with her depression, and she like private messaged me, and she said she wanted to talk about it on the group, but wanted to get my permission first to make sure she wasn't, being disrespectful of anyone there. So it's just an interesting group of people in there. They're all amazing individuals and human beings.
No, I think that's a compliment to you. I know I belong to a pretty large Facebook group. I started running about 5 years ago. A local mom in our community was hit and killed by a drunk driver while she was out training for the Boston Marathon, and she had three young children. And the week after she was killed, one of her friends put out this call for all of her friends, hey, everybody come run for Meg. And that next Saturday, 100,000 people all over the country went out and ran for. I think they had a map at one point, and it was over 1 million miles run around the world for this, just a simple mom in this tiny little county that we live in Virginia. Nobody knew her, and so about 16,000 people remained in this group 5 years later.
Wow.
And so I'm one of the administrators in the group, and last was 2017. We were fortunate enough, me and a couple of the other administrators were fortunate enough to get invited to go to Chicago as part of the very first Facebook community summit. So the big Facebook big shots came to Chicago and brought together 100 groups, and these administrators to just, their whole goal was to use communities like yours. You're doing exactly what they were talking about at this summit, finding a way to use these communities to really make a meaningful impact on the world. And their whole hope was to even start then connecting some of these communities. But they brought together these administrators, and while we were there, a lot of these administrators kept talking about how difficult it was to manage the conflicts in their group, how they were having to ban people, and all these rules that they were having to put in place. And so I kept, me and my other buddy who's been active in this group, we were sitting there looking like, what are they talking about? We've just never had to do that. But I think it is because in the beginning we just kind of set the climate for what the group was going to be about. It wasn't going to be a group that came and had a lot of advertising. We weren't going to be pushing different races. It was really to bring people together, to talk all levels of people, all types of people. Meg was her faith was a huge part of her life. She was a very devout Christian woman, but we know there are wonderful, beautiful atheists that are in this group. There are people of all faiths, and I keep saying that I think the draw is that people come to this group to experience life in a way that they wish it was outside of this group. Just very tolerant, very accepting. And I think they've kind of just taken ownership of that to keep it that way. And so, I thought after that summit, I think we did the best work in the early days to kind of set the tone. And it really sounds like that's what you've done with Still I Run.
Yeah, because I run a few challenges every year. I have apparel in my store, but I do not post a lot of that at all in the group just because it's not my community, it's our community, and that's how I want it to be.
Yeah. Do you have there been a lot of folks who have come to the group and have discovered the power of running as it comes to healing and aiding in mental health wellness?
I wish I could say yes, but I think it's the majority of the community in the group are just runners who've been running for their mental health all along, but have never had a place to congregate, There's always going to be these, there's specialty groups for absolutely everything. There's running for diabetes, there's running for water, for sight, but there was never anything like running for mental health. And I think that's probably the draw, that there are literally hundreds and thousands of us all running for the same purpose, but we just didn't know how to talk to one another. And now Still I Run is like this common glue that holds us all together.
Oh, that is. And I think I shared this with you. So I started this podcast, I don't know, about a year and a half ago. And it really was after I ran my first marathon. And you said it really good a minute ago. When I crossed the finish line of that first marathon, it was unexpectedly empowering. I tell people all the time that it opened doors for me that really are not running related. I just drew some real parallels in running to life, and this podcast was one of them. I never would have started a podcast if I hadn't finished that race and discovered, there are some things in this world I can do if I just get bold enough. And since that time, I think I've interviewed about 70 different people, most of them runners. All of them I have interviewed for reasons other than, I think you're the very first person I've ever interviewed for the sole connection of running and mental health. With that said, I think that in 80% of the conversations I've had, it has gone back to somebody either started running, picked up running, continues to run, one of those things, as a result of their, on a very basic level, they'll talk about managing stress. Many people I've talked to are in active recovery from an addiction. Lots of folks have had, once you get to talking, they've battled their own depression or anxiety or some other mental health illness. And it always just seems to surface in that is a big part of why they're running, which I have found fascinating because I've had my own challenges in my life, and I've discovered that running has really become this real healing property for me. For me, it's a great opportunity for just prayer and quiet time, but I think folks just find whatever connection out there running. So to me, it isn't surprising when you specifically say, hey, I know you all are getting this out of running. Why don't you come to this common place and let's share in this together? I think that's powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's the wild thing about Still I Run. When I was looking for a group for mental health awareness and running, I couldn't find it. And I was like, but I know there are others out there running for mental health. How is there nothing for this? And I think it was just one of those overlooked areas. No one ever thought to put a group together for it. So I think now that there is a group, people are like, oh, okay, good.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think I said a minute ago, we've come a long way, but I think we have so far to go with the stigma piece. I think a lot of folks still have a hard time saying that I run for you're very open about the challenges that you've had, and I appreciate that because that helps people. But there are a lot of folks who still won't say the words depression or hospitalized or suicide or the things that they have battled, and not so much because of their own shame, but a lot out of fear of what other folks are going to say or think of them. And so I think you're just giving people a beautiful place, and I think it starts with when you're willing to share your own story, you open the door for folks to say, wow, this really is a safe place to go say exactly what this is that I'm doing, and start giving other people permission to do it.
Right. I think my hope is that when people see me or hear about my story, they don't think like, oh, that depressed girl, look at her. I hope they see, like, even though she has depression, she has a successful business, she has a successful job, a family, she does marathons, she does half marathons, and like, if you look at that and you think weakness, then I don't know what is going on. So I hope that when people hear my story and still I run in depression and mental illness, they know that there's true strength there. It's not easy having a mental health condition. And it's empowering to be able to run through it all.
Yeah, no, you're doing some wonderful stuff. You were talking a minute ago, and I just wondered if you've ever thought about it, but when I asked you how you got started running, you very quickly said, well, my mom and dad ran, and clearly you didn't know back then this role that running would end up having in your life, which has been healing for you, and now it's being very directly passed on as a healing opportunity for others. When you go for your family runs and you're pushing your little girl around, do you ever think about that what am I passing on to her with this running? Not so much in the mental illness or the depression, but do you ever wonder what's this running going to become for her in her life? Because it became such a huge part of mine, and you didn't even like it.
No, I know. I think about that all the time. I hope that even if she does not have a mental health condition of her own someday, that she grows to love running and use it as just a healthy habit. You know, it's not good for just your mental health. It's good for your physical health. And what a great thing to pass along to your kids is this love of the outdoors and being active.
Yeah, no, I've had a couple of buddies. One interview comes to mind. I interviewed Sid Bush. Sid's 72 years old. He runs for our fallen military heroes. So every race he goes out. Up until last year, he ran marathons. So he's run over 200 marathons. Oh. But in my interview with him, he made this comment that he said, I think all the world leaders should just have to go out and run together, because running, if you just run together, that solves so many problems. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. There's a value to it well beyond what we're talking about today, mental wellness. But I just think I don't know, I think you forget about a lot of what is bothering you when you get out there. Maybe a lot of things come into focus in terms of what's important, and if you just get people out there running together, maybe we could get a focus on some of the more helpful conversations. So I think there's a lot of value in running. Yeah,
and I think that it's the shared experience too. That's at least what my husband and I have found in our marriage is, like, we'll go on 15 to 20 mile long runs together. And it's not easy, but we're running step in step, breathing together and struggling together on this same journey. and that I think brings us closer together. So in the grand scheme of things, it's good for relationships and mental health and physical health, and I just can't say enough nice things about the sport of running.
I'm kind of chuckling right now because I have a few friends who've run. For the most part, I run alone, and I just because I like to. It's really that quiet space for me. But there are times I run, especially longer distance, with some friends. And really, this past year, I ran several longer races with some friends. And I was just chuckling as you would say that because I know they'll be listening. They'll be thinking, no, that is not Keith. That dude is cranky after mile 10. You won't see him smile. You don't want to be around him. So they will probably say the opposite for me personally. It's like, no, you want a good relationship. Don't run long with him. So.
Oh no! That reminds me. It has its pros and cons. Like there have been multiple training runs or races. We've done a couple marathons together where I'm in the final 2 miles and he's super supportive. He's like, "You've got it, you've got it," and I'll sometimes say, "Shut up! Just let me run."
Yep. Now I ran the Marine Corps Marathon this past fall, and my buddy Tracy, who I know will listen to this, it was at mile 18 and I had a goal. I wanted to run my fastest marathon there, which is not very fast. And he was kind of watching the watch, and he was getting overly encouraging at that point. And at mile 18, I finally just looked at him. I said, "I just need you to shut up. That's all I need you to do now. Just shut up." And he did, but that's he'll be one of them. They'll say, "No, I'm not sure how good this really is for relationships on those long runs." But
yeah, it gets real and it gets raw out there on long runs.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I've now we did a 30-mile run back in November, but that went a little bit better. So we'll see. Do you have any, we're rolling into 2019, so do you have any running goals yourself for the next year?
My goal for the next year is to do a sub 150 for a half marathon. I'm about a minute 25 off from that goal. And then I would like to PR in the 25K, which I think I can do pretty easily because the last time I ran it, which is my current PR, I was 4 months pregnant. So I feel like I could probably do that.
I would imagine that would offer some opportunities to be a little speedier this time. So with Still I Run, what are the sort of the next stages of growth with Still I Run? Like I said, I know I saw you sort of recruiting some help. What do you see or hope is sort of the next branching out of Still I Run as you make this sort of a big national movement, which I full-heartedly support?
So the next step, right now I am recruiting ambassadors for the 2019 year. I would like to have a pretty robust group of ambassadors around the country to help spread the word about Still I Run. But I think the big thing is waiting for my approval from the IRS to have my 501c3 designation. We are a registered nonprofit, but you also have to register for that exemption. So I'm waiting for my letter from the IRS from that. Once I have that, I will go into fundraising mode, because the thing that I want to do more than anything is have a patient assistance grant, so that people in financial need can apply for grants to get some of their mental health help taken care of. So like co-pays for prescriptions, or to see a psychiatrist or a therapist, but then take that one step further. After they get this grant and they're getting their mental health help, they would theoretically then be paired up with a running coach. We have a chief running coach, actually. His name is Jason, and he's a certified RCAA coach. And this person or people would be paired up with Jason for a couple weeks and get them going on a running routine. So like creating that accountability, creating a little bit of a plan for them, no matter if they want to run a race or not. But pairing that whole well-rounded plan of mental health help with running, that is the ultimate goal. But funding needs to be in place before I'm capable of doing that.
How long have you been waiting on your 501c3?
I've been waiting since September. So it doesn't seem that long, but it feels like forever.
No, I've been involved in that process a couple of times. It can be painfully slow, so I hope that it moves well for you. Tell me a little bit about, so you're recruiting ambassadors. What are you looking for if somebody's listening to this and they've been moved and think, wow, I'd love to get involved with that? What are you looking for in a ambassador for Still I Run?
So people that are comfortable with sharing their story of mental health and running. So ambassadors will have to blog at least once a quarter on Still I Run's website about their journey with mental health and running. Share about Still I Run on social media. So using our hashtag Still I Run. In addition, I would like for them to host a group run in their area, and it doesn't have to be large, just an informal gathering where I will send, some swag to your group, and you lead a group run for like 3-5 miles, however far you want to go. But just being, a brand ambassador for spreading the word about mental health and running. And that's truly what I'm looking for. I just took a look at our applications today, and I think we have people from 20 different states and 3 from Canada, a couple from the United Kingdom, and then a couple from the Netherlands that have applied so far.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's exciting. So I really want to run that ambassador program well next year. So, on top of the funding and the 501c3, it's running a successful ambassador program and kind of creating a micro community out of that.
No, well, we will, hopefully folks will hear this, and if they are interested, I'll definitely post some links where they can reach out to you. And then you got my wheels spinning a little bit just in terms of, like I said, I work in the counseling center at the local college here, and we've got a sort of a peer wellness team, and I've started thinking, wow, that would be something wonderful they could do if they could spread that sort of just the power of running and connect with you. It'd be awesome to have a local college branch of Still I Run, so we can talk about that at some other point, but I think that would be an awesome sort of, again, way to grow the movement. I think there would be some real power in our young people discovering themselves early on, the power in running. So
that would be amazing.
We will definitely spread the word. Sasha, I'm grateful. This has been rewarding. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk about Still I Run. I'm a bigger fan of Still I Run now, even more than I was when I reached out to you. So hopefully we can, like I said, we have a shared passion in this. So hopefully we can work together and really help you out and bring some awareness to what you're doing and help you grow it and get you where you want to go.
Yeah, that would be great. I am all about partnering up with others who have a shared common interest, because I know that this is something that I can't take on myself. It takes a village to defeat the stigma. So I love talking to others who are passionate about this topic, and I am so appreciative that you found me and that you wanted to have me on your podcast. I'm absolutely honored.
No, well, this was well worth it, and I think that this is going to, like I said, I know it will. This conversation is going to resonate with a lot of folks. So I can't wait to link them to your website. I had the chance to go on there and read some of the stuff that you've written. The stories that others share are really powerful. So I think it is a great place for, and I think the private Facebook group you talked about, I think that's going to be something maybe that folks listening might have an interest in. So you're doing good stuff, my friend. I just really encourage you, and I thank you for a lot of folks who battle this. So keep running, keep saying, Still I Run.
I will. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sasha, for that interview. Thank you for your openness, your willingness to share in a way that I think really benefits a lot of people. Like we discussed in that episode, I think a lot of folks are hesitant to talk about mental health challenges, and I think one of the great spurs that gets people to be more willing to do that is others sharing their story. And so for Sasha to, number one, be willing to share her story and then do it in a format that invites other people into the conversation, I think that's powerful. And I love the way she is using running to kind of propel that journey forward. And so I just hope and think a lot of people are going to get a lot of benefit out of what Sasha is doing. I hope that she will continue to spread the awareness of not only just this stigma around mental health, but this value so many of us have found in running to support our own mental health journeys. Not everybody has a mental health illness, but I think we all battle mental health wellness on some level each and every day. We all encounter stress. We all encounter the daily battles that are going on in our lives every day. And if we don't tend to those in some sort of healthy way, and for me, running is certainly the foundation for how I deal with all that in my own life, then, there's always the potential that those turn into mental challenges that are far more impacting on our ability to carry out our day in a way that's productive and meaningful. And so, again, thank you, Sasha, for everything you're doing. I encourage everybody to check out the Facebook page, Still I Run. Go to the website, Still I Run. She's got that cool program she talked about where you may be interested in becoming one of her ambassadors. So check it all out. I will have links wherever it is that you access this episode. And let's support Sasha and that whole group of folks that she is supporting with her work. So until next time, thank you for listening in today. We've got some good episodes coming up as we roll into the new year. Another year coming. I'm sure everybody is setting their goals or just kind of thinking about what they want to make happen next year. I shared something the other day on Facebook that, whatever it is you do, whatever these new challenges you want to take on, however you're thinking about bettering yourself, just understand, think about why it is that you want to make these changes or why it is you want to accomplish some of the things you may be tackling. I think it's important to know the reason behind what we're doing. Sasha's a great example. You could hear it in her voice. She's very passionate around mental health and helping others through their challenges. So I think that helps her be successful in the things that she wants to accomplish in line with that. So think a lot about what is behind the goals you want to set. Why do you want to set them? If that why isn't strong enough, good chances that what you're trying to pull off won't happen. So just a little piece of advice as you roll into the new year, thinking about the new you want to be in 2019. But whoever you are in 2019, I hope you'll come back and keep listening to these 21047.com podcast episodes and interviews, and hopefully they will help support you, whoever you're trying to be next year. Anyway, thank you again, and until next time, have a great week.